Welcome back, everybody. So we're going to pick up where we left off with the paraphrasing practice, and then we're going to move into how to smoothly integrate quotations into your paper. A couple of you have mentioned that a quiz was due yesterday. I am not aware of a quiz that I assigned. So, I mean, the availability, I think, for the midterm ended. That just means if I had somebody who was going to take it late, that it was available until yesterday.
It was because the email that you sent us, you replied to your own email so you could send it to all of us. And so what the header said was from March 10th. It said midterm due tomorrow.
Okay, I apologize. The reason that I did that is because I could not access my email because it wouldn't let me sign in. So it would let me look at it on my phone, but I had to search for basically an email I'd sent before to all of you. So I could make sure that I didn't miss anybody. I have you guys saved as a group, but I couldn't access the group on my phone. So I had to use an old email. So I apologize if it was confusing. So the good news is there's no quiz. But yeah, yesterday was exciting. Hopefully that won't happen again. All right, let me grab the practice sheet we were working with. We had just started the one about the 20s. Just started it, yeah. Just a second. Over here. Okay. So we have our signal phrase. According to author Kathleen Yancey, the prohibition against alcohol in the 1920s wasn't being enforced. No one respected the law against drinking alcohol. Criminal organizations were powerful and the police were helpless. Okay. So again, we can remind ourselves what the original said. 20s were the years when drinking was against the law and the law was a bad joke because everyone knew a local bar where liquor could be had. Should we add that? We're going back to check, remember. So everybody knows where there's a bar. So we've got the prohibition against alcohol wasn't being enforced. How about, and it was easy to go find alcohol? What do you guys think? Too vague? go find out. I think we'll refine it after we do this shitty first draft, right? So we've got no one respected the law. All right, now I got to remind myself what the original said. We've got the stuff about organized crime in the cities, right? Okay, then we can talk about the music taste shifted, right? And then is the next point, and the flapper was a symbol of basically America moving on to different standards. Okay. So how do we want to talk about the shift in musical taste?
Louis Armstrong and others helped spread jazz music while classical music was being forgotten. Like comma while or after jazz music, comma while classical music was being forgotten.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't think we need all of the musicians. We could probably get away with maybe jazz musicians, but I like naming Louis Armstrong specifically. Being forgotten, you said?
Yes.
I like it. Okay, now what do we want to say about the flappers? Now, remember when I said it's okay to use a word from the original? Flappers is the name of a term for girls in the 20s who cut their hair short, wore shorter skirts. Basically, until then, everybody's outfits for women, you know, you were supposed to even cover your ankles. Everything was down to your feet. They started to wear short skirts, drink in public. Okay, I like that, Milos. Let me put that there. They used to wear short skirts with special bobbed hair that represented that. Let's say they represented America's break with the past. Okay, now let's go check it against the original. The flapper was born, bobbed hair, short skirts. You symbolized America's break with the past. That sounds a little bit too close, right? So we need to get that a little bit away. I think this one is far enough away, right? We reworded it so that it's far enough from the original. So now we're checking the represented America's break with the past is a little too close to the original. What about born? Did they use born? Let's see. Yeah, they used born. So we need to use a different word too. So this is what you do. You kind of put your summary or your explanation of what they're saying, and then you go back and make sure you're not too close to the original. So this is exactly how it would look if you were paraphrasing it. Then you would go back and check it against the original. So let's put the original above what we have now, and now we're checking it, right? So this is the original version. Ooh, that's very yellow. So help me out with these last two sentences. We're getting there. The flapper was born in the 20s. Too close to the original. Help me get it more into our words. Ideas. Still can use flappers, right? Oh, we say flappers. I don't know if this is, tell me if you think it's too close. Became symbolic of the time. I still want to say young women. Let's see, we'll try it out and then we'll see if we can change it. These young women. How about instead of wore short skirts, shorten their skirts? Bob their hair. So it's pretty close. We could say instead, bobbed. Yeah, I mean, their hair in bobs. Again, we got to change that last section. We can use a semicolon because that's the very academic thing to do. I don't know why I can't spell skirt today. Or their hair bob. What do we say instead of they represented America's break with the past? Somebody help me out. Remember, a semicolon divides two complete thoughts that are closely related to each other. I took out the and because basically you could do comma and one of the fanboys, or you could just replace both of those with a semicolon. See, I'm tempted to add things like they broke with the more conservative past, but would that be going too far? Would I be adding to what they're saying? Get rid of it.
After the semicolon, could you put um, America's seeking the future or something like that? Like
Okay, I'm liking
how it
where
says
you're
like
going with that. Yeah.
America's break with the past, just be like America's like seeking the future, like America's going into the future, like something about like the future rather than the past.
Okay. So gentlemen shortened skirts more than her bob. They represented the future or the more liberal future. Not too much. Or are they repeating the present?
What'd you say?
Are they representing the present rather than the future? Or they're a symbol of change. We've got that right. They're a symbol of the time. I feel like we need to say something about how they symbolize change. We can't use symbolic again. How about this will go along with future. They represented a new time in America.
Could you say something about like them being rebellious to the past ways or like the past like not morals but like just kind of how things were?
Yes, I like that word rebellious. Yeah. They rebelled against the standards of the past.
Yes.
We've already really said America, so they know we're talking about that. Okay, so now last, you check it against the original. These young women shortened their skirts and wore their hair bobbed. They rebelled against the standards of the past. Oh, how about they rebelled against past standards? That sounds a little more.
Or could you get rid of the semicolon and just put a comma and put which?
Here?
Yeah, like just put which they were rebelling against the past.
Let's see. These young women shortened their skirts and wore their hair bobbed, which rebelled against past standards. That would work. Not in numbers. Then I like the standards of the past with that phrasing. What do you guys think? So did we add anything to it? Now look, if you can look at the original versus this one, it's just a tiny bit shorter, but it's still about the same length. So that's what we're shooting for with the paraphrase. Either maybe about the same length, maybe a little shorter, sometimes a little longer, but rarely. You still want to keep it about the same length. So we've got our signal phrase that identifies our source. Now you're probably hopefully going to have more information about her. According to author Kathleen Yancey, the prohibition against alcohol in the 1920s wasn't being enforced, and it was easy to find alcohol. Oh, okay. Alcohol twice. Help me out. What can we do with that? Instead of saying alcohol again.
Could you just put it?
Yeah. I'm not loving the vagueness of it. Oh. Let's look at the original, a local bar. Okay. So instead of saying find alcohol, it's easy to find
Bars.
that's still. What do you think? From the context, is drinks and alcohol still equivalent enough? We could say cocktails, but I think drinks works. No one respected the law against drinking alcohol. Ah, so you've got alcohol against. How about drinking? No one respected the law against drinking. Booze, that's what I'm looking for. Maybe a little too informal. What do you guys think? Can I get away with booze? No one restricted the law against drinking. Criminal organizations were powerful and the police were helpless. Yeah. Louis Armstrong and others spread jazz music while classical was being forgotten. I really like that sentence. I think that does a really nice job of summarizing that thought. Flappers also became symbolic of the time. Symbols symbolized. I think symbolic might be a little too close, right? How about represented change? Change in society standards. Am I adding too much? Flappers also represented a change in society standards. These young women shortened their skirts and wore their hair bobbed, which rebelled against the standards of the past. I'm not in love with standards of the past. Somebody can do better than me. Help. Previous rebelled against.
Morals of the past, or
Okay, I like that better. More codes. It's getting there. It's getting there. So as you can see, it's a process. It's not something you're going to be able to do like in 5 minutes. You really translate it fully, and then you go back and check, and you're like, yeah, this word we can find another better word for. There is a word that means the same thing, so we're going to change that to the word, right? So symbolic and represented, they're close enough that we can change it. Flappers also represented a change in society's standards. These young women shorten their skirt, and because we've got the specific examples, we need those, which rebelled against moral codes of the past. Yeah. Okay. And then once we make sure that everything is still there and we didn't add anything that was not, we're good. And then you cite it, right? This is on page 25. We've already mentioned her name here, right? So for MLA, you don't have to mention it again. You're just going to have the page number if it exists. If there was no page number, you wouldn't have anything at the end. Because basically, this is what we would go to your works cited and look up this source by, right? Because they're listed alphabetically on your works cited page, like you guys told me about in the MLA group presentations. Okay. How do you doing them on your own go? How were the exercises? In the email, if you got it, I asked you to do 5. If you didn't get the email, I'm not going to collect those until tomorrow. I still have to create an assignment for it because I was just able to access Brightspace again today. So I'll create an assignment for it that'll be due tomorrow at midnight. So I'm asking you to take 5 of the paragraphs we have not worked on here. So, 5, wait, where are the rest of them? They used to have more than this. Okay, I'm lying. Do the next 3. So the assignment will be for tomorrow, paraphrase 3, 4, and 5 on your own. And I will write that in the assignment after class. I'll create it. Okay, we'll look at these more tomorrow because this is like a big part of what you do in academic papers to get your sources into the paper. So we're going to work on this quite a bit so everybody feels comfortable and nobody's afraid they're plagiarizing it. Okay, but I do want to talk a little bit about how you introduce anything using a signal phrase. So let's look at what a signal phrase is. Okay. So they're the kind of things we've been doing which identify what the source is or who wrote it and what qualifications they have. Okay. So a lot of times beginning writers make the mistake, as it says here, of quoting too much. And then your paper isn't you, it's not written by you. It sounds like basically a copy and paste job of a bunch of different sources talking instead of you. You're our guide through the issue, through the subject. And so what you're doing is moving us through by presenting an idea, backing it up with evidence, and then explaining that evidence. It's like the layering of your opinion in there. Okay. So as we talked about, paraphrasing and summarizing are good ways to integrate into your research. Okay. But sometimes you do want to share the exact wording from an original source. Why do you do that? Okay. You do it because they said it really well, or they explain something difficult in a user-friendly way, and you can go ahead and share that with your audience instead of you trying to do it. Okay, but there are two things you want to identify when you introduce that information: your source's credibility and relevance. Okay, so basically, who is saying this and why they have a right to say it, and then after you quote them, why are you quoting them? What does it mean? Okay, so the first time you use a source, you should provide some kind of setup. That's called the signal phrase. Okay, and then you address the relevance of the quote either before or after the quotation. Okay, you don't just want to drop it in there and we're like, oh, okay, what does that mean, or how does it connect to your paper's topic? Okay, so we're going to look at two options for integrating quotes and choose which one you think works the best. Okay, your source's credibility and relevance are important. Okay, so take a look at these two quotes. Which one do you think obeys the rules? It identifies who it is, what their authority or their ability to speak on the topic is, and then explains why the quote is there. Which one does a better job of that? One or two? When you've read it and come to a conclusion, put your answer one or two in the chat. Okay, I have a 2 and I have a 1. Let's see what the majority is going to say. 2 with an asterisk? Which one establishes both credibility and the relevance of the quote? So we meant 2? Come on, everybody else. Tristan, Claire, Devin, Isabel, Maury, Annalee, Camilla. Which one shows that the source has the authority to talk about the topic and shows why the quote's relevant to the topic? Everybody else afraid to answer? Come on, get your participation points in for today. Mallory says 2. Thank you, Mallory. Isabella says 2. Anybody gonna disagree? Tristan, what do you think? Claire? Ela says 2. All right, well, let's look at it. So credibility, which one shows, let's see, in his book, Bobby Fischer Teaches Chess, chess champion Bobby Fischer explains the object of chess for beginners. He writes, the object of chess is to attack the enemy in such a way that it cannot escape capture. Let me note that it may be confusing, but if you guys know, you remember your MLA, this is not in MLA format, it's using the APA format. So don't let the date here fool you, and you would not have this for MLA, you would just have the page number, right? Just to make sure I clarify, this is in a different format than the one that we use, okay? So this one says, Bobby Fischer tells us he wrote a book, that he's a chess champion, right? Gives us the quote and then explains, since the beginning, chess players have a tendency to initiate a game without strategy in mind. Fischer's explanation provides important guidance to help them focus on basically the objective. In the second one, in his book, Bobby Fischer writes, okay, so he wrote a book. His name is Bobby Fischer. Do we know what the book is about or who Bobby Fischer is in the second one? The answer would be no. So does it establish why he has the bona fides or the credentials to talk about this? No, it does not. And then this explanation, this quote speaks for itself. Cop out. No, you have to speak for the quote, because I can read that quote and see something totally different in it than you see, right? So you have to tell me how you think that the quote connects to your topic. So they're telling me here, since the beginning of chess, players have a tendency to initiate a game without strategy. Okay, so it speaks to the strategy that chess players use. So I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with all of you and say this first one is the one that you want, because it tells us not only he wrote a book about chess, but that he's a chess champion. Okay, and then it gives us very specific information on what this quote means in the overall topic of the paper, which is about playing chess as a beginner. Okay, so that's why. So let's try another one. Okay. This one is in MLA format. So which one do you think works more effectively? Again, think about which one tells me the credibility of the source, their qualifications, and which one explains the relevance of the quote best. When you're ready, put your answer in the chat. One, okay, good. one. Yep. Because in this one, it's his critical analysis of the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. They tell us he's a critic. They tell us he's a critic here, but here it says he's analyzing specifically the story, right? It gives us just a little bit more information that he has analyzed the story. This means he could be a critic of anything, right? We don't know specifically what his area is. This tells us he's specifically criticizing the piece of literature in question. Okay. And this one, it's basically a mashup of two quotes. And this second one is what we call a dropped quotation. That means they dropped it into the paper without a signal phrase. You always have to have some of your words attached as an introduction. You can't just drop a quote in, and you especially can't use another quote to explain a quote, right? You have to do the work of explaining how this quote fits into your overall paper's meaning and how it supports something that you want to say about your topic. Okay, just like they did here in his essay, Smith argues for a different reading, right? Because this quote says that people ignore the character of the headless horseman and don't really analyze him as much as they should. He's arguing for sort of a different take on the traditional reading for the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. This other one is just a quote from somebody else that's a bit convoluted and is not in as user-friendly language as the author can put it into. Okay. So anytime you are integrating something, whether you're paraphrasing it, whether you're summarizing it, whether you're quoting it, you're going to use one of these signal phrases. Okay. And it can be hard to do the first time to integrate it smoothly because you want your words to flow into the quote and it to sound like a normal sentence all the way through. Sometimes it can be hard to do that. So sometimes it helps to use models. So let's look at some models. Back to the Purdue OWL, they have a page that provides you some models to lead into. And they even break it down by the traditional, whether you're using APA, which many of you will be doing, okay, or MLA, okay. So if you're not sure, you're not yet comfortable with using signal phrases, try starting with one of these models. Okay, Doe declares or argues or believes. You don't just have to say the author says all the time. You can give us a little bit more information on how they're saying it. Are they implying it? Are they suggesting it? Are they arguing it? Are they refuting something? Okay, now these are not the only ones, but it's a good place to get started if you're trying to start to get comfortable. Okay, be sure that it sounds like a normal sentence when you read it out loud. Okay, they also have is expressing disagreement. They refute or they dispute the claim that nature is more important than nurture. All right, we're down to the last minute. Tomorrow we'll continue talking about integrating quotes, and I'll take any questions you guys have. Otherwise, I will open up the session for